Welcome to another edition of Journey of Hope. Thrilling stories of people that have encountered some kind of a traumatic illness, injury, or cancer. Each morning we wake up assuming that the day is going to go well for us, little realizing that there's going to be some sobering news that we're going to hear for the first time. Our special guest today is Ann Hughes from Highland, California. And she has a story to share, a journey that she's been on, and one that you might be able to identify with. Ann, it's good to have you here. We've got people from around the world that are watching. And before we tell about your journey and coming here to Loma Linda, tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and where you got started in life and moving here to California.
Well, thanks, Lynn, and thank you for having me. I'm sure you can't tell by the accent, but I grew up in the Southeast.
Well, occasionally I can hear it.
Occasionally you can hear it. Alabama's my home state, and I came here from Tallahassee, Florida.
So you were raised in Alabama then?
I was raised in Alabama.
Went through schools and, okay, and made your way. Did you come directly to California, or you were down?
No. I from Alabama. It's kind of a roundabout way to California. From Alabama, I lived in Kentucky for a short while. My husband at the time was a broadcast engineer, so we would kind of be traveling around. And from there, we went to Tallahassee, Florida, and I was there for like 7 years prior to my move out here.
To California.
To California, but I've been here since '75, so
this is kind of
this
home.
is pretty much home now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what have you been doing since you've been here in California? I mean, I know you've got a professional background in an area, so tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
Well, I am a long-time die-hard hairdresser. What can I say?
Right.
But that has given me a lot of opportunities, especially here in California. Well, even before moving here, I would do classes around the country, haircutting classes and all of that.
Oh, you would?
Yeah.
Okay.
And but then when I came out here, there was a lot of education for me out here that I didn't have the opportunity to have back in that part of the country as easily as I could out here. So I would go to all different kind of advanced classes and, again, have an opportunity to go from place to place to teach my craft. So that was
kind of fun.
Interesting.
Well, now, you had your own business.
I did.
You started your own business. Did you start when you first came to California?
No, I didn't go into business for myself in California until probably 79 or 80, and actually I teamed up with a couple of women here in Loma Linda, and we opened a salon in Loma Linda.
Did you?
That was in 79, and then in 86 I went solo, still here in Loma Linda, and opened a place called Ann and Friends.
Ann and Friends.
Ann and Friends.
Okay. And over a period of time, you had a lot of people and clientele coming through.
I have indeed. And strangely enough, I have some clients, and I'm about to tell my age, so let's don't go any
No, we won't do that.
But I have some clients that I am doing now that I started doing in '75 when I first moved here.
Really? Yeah. So you develop a relationship, and they develop a trust and know somebody that they can count on.
It's a relationship kind of business.
Yeah,
it really is.
It really is. So now, tell me about the health in your family. And I mean, have you been pretty healthy all along? And
all my life.
All your life.
All my life. And come from a very healthy family. I was raised by I actually lost my parents when they were quite young. My mother was like 29, and my father was 55, so that was very young.
So what did your mother die from?
Believe it or not, kidney stone.
From kidney stone? Died from a kidney stone?
Died from a kidney stone, but that was before medicine is what it is today, of course.
Yeah.
So I was raised by my grandparents out on a farm in Alabama, and and they lived to be 93 and 97.
Wow. Now, is this on
Just
your
good.
mother's side or your father's side?
My mother's side.
On your mother's side.
Just salt
so
of the
for
earth
that
people.
generation, that was a good age.
Oh,
yeah.
very good.
So you're
age.
raised on the farm.
I was raised on the farm.
And you learned a good work ethic then.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And good healthy eating and good healthy living.
Which has made
you
a
know.
difference for you over the
yeah,
years. Yeah.
It definitely
What
has.
did your father die from?
Heart attack.
He had a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now, having a heart attack at the age of 55, so have you ever had any problems with the heart?
No, I haven't.
No problems. Well, great.
I
That's
know.
great. So everything's going along fine. And then a few years ago, I want to say it was around 4 or 5 years ago, probably
That's right.
4 years ago, you got some news. And what did you hear?
Well, to begin with, I heard that there was a spot in a mammogram that I needed to have checked further.
So, I mean, you heard this kind of secondhand, or?
No. This was, I got mammograms on a regular basis.
Okay.
And one was suspicious, and they had me come back. They redid it and decided that they needed to do a biopsy. And so they did the biopsy, and as you can imagine, it was a tense few days before
I
you
can
get
imagine.
that
It's
report
fearful.
back.
You're going to have a biopsy. I mean, they want you to come back. There must be something going on.
Absolutely.
This is bad news.
It is.
So
Scary.
It's kind of scary, isn't it?
So then I got the call that everything's clear, no worries. So
You
know,
sighed a sigh of relief.
Big sigh of relief.
that-
Big sigh of relief. And went about my merry way and went back the next year for my mammogram again.
A year later,
A year later.
annual checkup,
Yep. And
which
so,
is important.
oh,
Annual checkups. Don't forget to have your annual
bold
checkups.
print.
That's
Annual
right.
checkups, yeah. So anyway, I went back for another mammogram, and they wanted to redo it.
Same kind of a scenario.
Same kind of scenario. So they redid it, and this time they wanted me to, there were suspicious findings, and they wanted me to see a surgeon.
Oh, suspicious finding, but this time they want you to see a
Wanted
surgeon.
me to see
I
a
mean, did they say, did they indicate at this point that it might have a malignancy, but
No,
suspicious findings, but they
suspicious
wanted you to
findings.
see a surgeon?
And they weren't,
So how did this strike you?
wasn't sure enough, what it was. So surgeon is also a scary term,
Yes.
but it struck me strangely, of course. So I gathered up this was at another hospital, and so I gathered up all of my x-rays and
All your
reports
records
and all
and-
that kind of stuff, and came over to Loma Linda. And I knew if there was something too suspicious, that this is probably where I would want to be.
So you were really in another area, but
Mm-hmm.
when it came time to see a surgeon, you wanted to come over here to
I
Loma
did.
Linda, and if
I
there is
did. Mm-hmm.
a problem, you knew enough about Loma Linda that this was the place to come.
Correct.
Okay.
And at the other place too, simply because of insurances being what they are, and
Sure.
doctors and all of this. So I came over here, and I had friends who had seen surgeons, and this one friend who had gone through breast cancer
Herself.
and lives in Colorado. So I called her and I said, Ida, who is the surgeon? Because she sang his praises, and that always means a lot. If
Sure.
you trust.
So she used to live here and then moved to Colorado?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you remember she'd seen some surgeon.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I called her and got his name and number, and fortunately was able to get in with him, and it was Dr. Gabrielio
Okay.
here in Loma Linda.
Sure.
And
Really a very prominent surgeon.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I took all of my records over there and got his attention quickly. And the day that I went in for this appointment, they then escorted me down to Dr. Bay's office, which is in radiology.
So you went to see the surgeon. They looked at some records, and then immediately they took you down to this
radiologist.
To the radiologist.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to get some more pictures.
Wanted to get some more pictures, and then looked at those pictures right away and set me up with another biopsy.
So here we go again.
Here we go again. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And this time when the report came back, there was a tumor.
There was a tumor. It was malignant.
It was malignant. And
you have cancer. Mm-hmm. That's the words they're
well,
using.
that is not the word they use. They use that medical term for
okay.
something tumor.
Yeah.
And I said,
it sounded a little bit better than
I
cancer.
guess so. It sounded a little more sophisticated. Carcinoma, I think is.
Yeah, the term.
And I said, and that means.
Yes.
So I made them spell it out. So anyway, that began my.
That was your part of the journey,
mm-hmm.
yeah, which
mm-hmm.
you're still on. So, I mean, when you get the words, when it dawns on you, you have a carcinoma, you have cancer. How does that hit you?
How does that resonate, huh?
Yeah.
Well, it's scary puts it mildly, and
it's frightening.
It's very, very. And Dr. Gabrielio seemed to think that even though this tumor was very, very small,
just a teeny bit of cancer,
teeny, tiny one, that maybe it had been there all along. And when that other biopsy had been done,
might have even had it then.
It might have been that it was so small that they didn't get enough of the. Mm-hmm. So then we started talking about what we would have to do.
What are your options? You know, I mean, I've got this. May have had it for a little while, mm-hmm. and I've got cancer now. I need to remind our listening audience: when you find out you have cancer, it's a diagnosis, not a death sentence.
Right.
It's a diagnosis. So you were diagnosed with a cancer, with a tumor, and so they begin talking to you about some of the options.
They did talk to me about options, and but as a patient, that doesn't come in so quickly that it's not a death sentence.
Yes, all you hear is cancer.
All you hear is cancer. And so...
And it's almost like it's the big C, and cancer, you know, people die from cancer. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's all you're hearing. Mm-hmm. I got cancer.
Mm-hmm. And even though there were suspicious findings, knowing that I had to go see this surgeon, I really didn't want to give this information any credibility, I guess you might say. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want only the people that were the closest
people that already knew. You got to keep it to yourself.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's just something that I really wanted to hold on to.
Yeah.
And so then when I left the office, I'll never forget, this one dear friend had made me promise that I would call her as soon as I got the news, one way or the other. And I was praying that her answer machine would pick up, which it did.
So you could leave the message on
I could leave the message, and I didn't have to talk to her, because at that point...
You didn't want to talk to anybody?
I didn't want to talk to anyone. And you're trying so hard to say it doesn't have to mean anything, you know, I'm strong, you know.
I'm going to be okay.
I'm going to be okay.
It's not as bad as that.
I know.
Yeah.
You're doing all of this self-talk,
sure.
But if it has to come...
If you have to talk about it.
If you have to talk about it,
it's more real.
It's more real, and the tears come.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want anybody to know I was scared. You know, I
sure.
had to be a big girl.
You know. Well, if you're scared, then it also makes it more real.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. And so then the second person I told was my daughter. And this was all even before my husband. And so I had to be, again, strong. And, you know, this is good, Lynn, that you have to be strong for someone else, because you can't really be that strong for yourself.
Correct.
You know, it's
you can put up the front for somebody else and help them, and yes.
And give her the reassurance that everything's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
we're
getting this taken care of. It's teeny tiny.
Yeah.
You know, those were all the reassuring things that I was giving to my daughter. So anyway, that was the path. And then, of course, the next step was to go back and to really hear the details of the options that I had. And before I could get back in to see him, there was this, I don't know, maybe a period of 2 weeks, you know, before I could get
Sure.
back in to see Dr. Gabrielio. And, you know, here I'm working in a public business.
Yeah.
And again,
People coming in, clients are coming in and out.
no, and I couldn't bring myself to
Bring it out.
bring it up, you know, because it just seemed that it made it so much bigger.
If you
And
talked about it.
If you talked about it, and everybody has all of these opinions for you, and
Sure.
you know, it was just, that was probably the worst part of the whole thing. But at the end of the evening, one day, my fellow hairdresser, the one that worked next to me, happened to be doing a woman's hair that worked
At Loma Linda?
at Loma Linda. And if I'm not mistaken, she was with the media department.
Could very well have been.
Her name was Julia. I think we talked about this one time.
Yes, she was with me.
But anyway, she had overheard me talking with this one client that I was very close to. And so when I finished, she said, Ann, I don't know if you've heard about Proton or not, but you know, they're now doing Proton for breast surgery. And so I was open to hear what she had to say, but at the time I just want to get that thing out of there,
Yeah.
you know.
Take care of it and move on.
I know. I don't want too many things thrown at me. I'm overwhelmed. You know, this is what I was thinking about. But I did agree to talk with a nurse in the Proton department.
So you're opened up to that.
I was opened up to that.
And that's about the time that we'd started this new protocol. I mean, we've been doing it for probably about a year.
I
then.
think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
So then, as it turned out, by the time I made my way back to Dr. Gabrielio, he also offered that as an option.
He did. Now, nothing happens by accident.
No.
Nothing happens by accident.
No. Meanwhile, that had given me a chance to talk with a lady named Gail at the Proton department,
Sure.
who is Dr. Bush's nurse.
Yes, right.
And she explained to me what it was all about and how it worked and, you know, all of this. So that gave me a little insight too. So I was a little better prepared, I think, when Dr. Gabrielio
Kind of shared that you were
offered that to me, yeah.
Oh, that was wonderful news. And for our listening audience, I mean, we've been working on this protocol with women with breast cancer, early stage, a lumpectomy,
Right.
followed up with Proton.
Right.
And how many treatments?
10.
10 treatments. So
10 treatments.
you went through quite a process, finally made the decision to go ahead. So you had the lumpectomy?
Well, I had the lumpectomy, and if there was no
Lymph node involvement?
involvement, I was a candidate for it. Everyone is not a candidate.
Correct.
But another thing, too, that's part of the scariest part of the story is, you know, they tell you all these things before you go into surgery and you have to make your decision
Sure.
then if you're going to have a breast completely removed, or if you're going to have a lumpectomy, or if you're going to have a
to be
complete
ready to go for the whole
mastectomy.
thing.
You have to be ready for the whole thing. And
Because they're not sure what they're going to
no.
find. Yeah.
no, and so I had made the choice though that it would be a lumpectomy, and if I decided later to have more removed, I could.
Sure. Kept that as an option.
That yeah.
So you went into surgery, not sure what they're going to find, but
but knowing that would
you had that option.
I had that option, and it would be a lumpectomy.
Yeah.
So it was a happy day when I heard that there was no lymph node interruption.
So now for our listening audience, you came in 10 times, 10 days with Proton. And the real distinct advantage there, particularly for a woman with breast cancer, is the Proton beam comes in and just, I mean, pinpoints with pinpoint accuracy.
Directly on the spot.
Directly on where the tumor has been. So now, did you suffer any side effects when you were undergoing this?
Compared to other radiation, no.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was tired,
Sure.
you know, and from what I understand, you know, you get a pretty heavy beam
Yeah.
at one time, so you
Yeah.
are tired. And it's a funny thing because, you know, you share the waiting room with all the guys that are having the
Prostate.
prostate
Yeah.
proton treatment, and they'd be laughing and going to play golf, and I thought, now there's something wrong with this picture.
You're here all sober and
I know.
worried about
yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah.
Kind of exhausted, you know.
And they're having a good time.
And they're having a good time waiting to get through it so they can go to the golf course. I'm waiting to get through it so I can go take
go
a nap,
home.
you know. But the good news is I had fewer treatments than what they had. So that was
considerably. So you had 10 treatments, and we're talking about how many years ago?
Almost 4.
Coming up on the 4th anniversary. Well, congratulations. That is
Good
wonderful news.
Good news.
So do you go in and have checkups still?
I do. I still have my annual mammogram. And I see Dr. Bush is my proton doctor. And it's my understanding he heads up this study.
Yes, he's heading up the study. And we've had a number of women going through, and it looked very, very exciting.
I know.
Yeah. It's been a clinical trial, but it probably will become the standard with women at that particular stage of breast cancer.
And so I get to ask him each time, how's the study coming? Any returns? And I think it's been minimum.
It
you
is,
know.
yeah.
I'm not sure they have completed
the actual clinical trial in terms of the study. Yeah, it's going to take a few years for all the information to come in, but they're very, very excited about what's happening.
Yeah.
Well, now that you've had cancer and you have an opportunity, you're still practicing your profession there as a stylist. Do you have opportunity to share?
Oh, all the time.
Do you?
All the time. And you know, that's the joy part of it. And you know,
the joy part. I want to hear that again.
Well,
that's the
you
joy
know,
part
for
of
one
it.
thing, I'm still an active hairdresser. So once I got through that, I had a place to go. You know,
to be involved.
To be involved and to be of service to people, and to also you know, be receptive to what their needs are.
Sure.
You know, so it takes you out of yourself.
You have an opportunity to be helping somebody else.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so then, you know, given the opportunity, when I hear of breast cancer, you know, like mine, I'm right there to see if I can
What difference does having cancer has it made to you?
Oh my goodness! Now we're gonna get to the teary part.
Yeah. What difference?
To realize that today is important.
Today is important. Yeah. We have today, don't we? I mean, all of a sudden, you know, you realize the brevity of life, and life takes on a whole new meaning, doesn't it? Every day takes on a whole new meaning. Yeah.
And everything you do seems to take on a different meaning.
It does. And you have an opportunity for a ministry.
Well, you know, it seems that way sometimes.
It's not just a job. I mean, you're serving people.
I certainly have an obligation.
You want to give back.
I want to give back. I want to give back. And opportunity presents itself for me to do that. You know, one of the things that that the salon where I work has done 2 different years, we have done a big cut-a-thon for Cancer Society.
Have you?
We have, and raised money for that.
And what is that?
Well, a cut-a-thon is where we go and we go on a day off, and it has been a Sunday, and all of the hairdressers contribute their time, and we cut hair for a reduced rate, and the monies that we bring in that day
goes for that charity.
Goes for the charity.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is wonderful.
Yeah. So it's a good thing. And we give out the little cancer pins and,
So
But
you're a walking advertisement.
Yeah, yeah, and I have to really give a lot of credit to my colleagues too. And surprisingly, Lynn, almost everybody wants to help in that.
They want to be supportive.
They want to be supportive because they have been touched by cancer one way or the other in their lives,
Yeah,
either through
there's so many
friends or
people.
family or,
Yeah.
so it's,
So you have an opportunity
Yeah.
day after day, I mean, when you're there in your work. Well, we have just a minute or so left. What would you tell women that are watching?
well, I guess the first thing is that it's not a death sentence.
It's not a death sentence.
Even though it feels like it sometimes, when you first hear that news.
Annual exam.
Annual exam, and you've got today. And to
Say that again.
You've got today.
You've got today.
And so you make every day count.
So
Yeah.
critically important.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us here on Journey of Hope. And there are people that are watching. There are some women that are watching that just this week they were diagnosed. And it's a diagnosis, not a death sentence.
Right.
And you've shared with them
Right.
that today, we have today.
Yeah.
And for our listening audience, those of you that are watching on, again, Ann is a marvelous testimony of what can happen when somebody's diagnosed with cancer and they move on, they look at their options, and then they're treated and realize that it's a diagnosis, not a death sentence. And she realized that having cancer has provided a wonderful opportunity for her to give back and her interaction with other people. And she's a walking testimony of when you have cancer that you can not only be a survivor, but you can be a thriver. For those that are looking on, I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Lynn Martell for Journey of Hope. And until next week, God bless you each one. Thank you for joining us. See you next week.